The Atheist Debates Patreon project presents Finding Out You Were Wrong. I like that. It had a completely, I don't really title things, but how does it feel when you're talking to someone and they are just completely wrong? How frustrating is that to be in conversation with somebody and they are just so amazingly wrong? And what does it feel like to find out that you were wrong? Now, I'm a former believer, and most of the people in the room are as well, and sometimes I find that people in the atheist community who used to believe now have a difficult time engaging with or understanding the people who do still believe. It's like, we are enlightened and you're the stupid ones. Why are you still so stupid? This has to do with how we view finding out that we were wrong. Now, I can't recall exactly what changed my mind about the God question. There was no single thing, no epiphany. It didn't happen instantly. And my path out of religion is going to be different than the paths of many of the people in this room. And this idea that we are the enlightened ones is correct. Maybe. And the thing that we need to remember is, from the perspective of the believer, they're the enlightened ones. From their point of view, they have the truth, sometimes capital T truth, and we are the ones who are deceived. Now, I didn't have an epiphany when I discovered religion. I was about 5, but there were various points in time through the time that I was a Christian, where I had different awakenings, different enlightenment to different ideas, and I thought that all of you were deceived. We know now I was wrong, or we're convinced I was wrong. Maybe I'm wrong now. I'm often asked, well, why do people believe, and what can we do about it? But I think it's important to recognize that there is an appeal to some things that are clearly irrational. Irrational beliefs that we don't have any good reason to believe can be very appealing. And if we don't realize they're irrational when we fall into them, they just become just so. And then once we're invested in them, once we've publicly professed our position, now we have an investment that encourages us to protect them from being exposed as irrational at all costs. And that's not easy to come over. In some recent tweets, I've had people ask me, hey, how can you possibly look at a newborn baby and not see an intelligent creation, a creation with a purpose? It's just all so perfect, you know, the baby, and it formed and blah, 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 blah. Okay, it's a baby, it's cute. Does that mean there's a God? What about beauty in general? This came up on the show and in a tweet last week. How do you explain beauty? Well, we've had discussions about how to explain beauty, but this is the way most people think. Most people aren't digging into deep philosophical arguments. They are not studying their Holy Scriptures in great detail. They are raised in a community, or they fall into a community where people around them believe. They've got a friend, they've got a community. This is why I love seeing communities like this building up, because there's this idea that they're constantly having their views being reinforced. They're not being challenged. I had a saying that I said a number of times on the show: I want to believe as many true things and as few false things as possible. We even had it printed up and put on a t-shirt. And somebody took and made an internet meme out of it. And I'm not a big fan of memes, even when they include me. And sometimes there'll be a meme with a quote from me, which is not actually a quote from me. It's me paraphrasing or quoting someone else, Dan Barker or whoever. And one fairly prominent atheist decided that this meme was trivial. I want to believe as many true things and as few false things as possible. And he's like, oh, Matt has said some wonderful things. Why would we waste time on something so trivial? Everybody would say this. And we had a discussion, and it's kind of ongoing, and I hope to see that more. But is it true that everyone would say this? Well, no, I don't think so. I don't think everyone would say. I don't think everyone recognizes the importance that you have to have both of those. I want to believe as many true things. Okay, then you believe everything. I want to believe as few false things. Okay, then you believe nothing. The two together are what we're saying we're trying to get to is, I want my internal model of reality to match reality as best as possible. I want to have good reasons for my beliefs. Now, let's say that everybody would say that. Does that mean they actually care about the truth? Or do they care about appearing that they care about the truth? Is it okay? Because it's trivial to say, I care about what's true. Take the callers that call into the show. On any given week, I've asked people, hey, don't you care about whether or not your beliefs are true? I haven't had anybody really say no, at least not that I recall. There might be some people who shun the idea that we can get to any sort of truth or go down. Yeah, we'll save that for another video. But generally people say, of course I care. And the truth is, they think they found the truth and they think they have a good method for finding the truth. It's easy to say you care about the truth, but do you really care if you're not exercising the critical thinking, skepticism, and intellectual rigor that is demonstrably the most reliable path to the truth? And if they don't use the tools that lead to what's true, can we really say that they do care about the truths? Anybody can profess anything. I could profess that I'm a Christian. Somebody puts a gun to my head and says, tell everybody you love Jesus. Woo, I love Jesus like you wouldn't believe. Doesn't make it true. Now, there may be people who don't actually care about the truth. I doubt it. There may be some people who say they don't care about the truth. I have a hard time believing them as much as I want to take people at their word. So if you come across somebody who says they don't really care about the truth, how can you convince them that they should care about the truth? I think that you're going to find that they do care about the truth. They're just trying to avoid the discussion that will expose inconsistencies in how they look for the truth. And so you can talk to them about things, well, you know, if you're going to invest your money, don't you want accurate information? Or are you just going to throw it out there? Because if so, I've got a bridge I can sell you. Now, clearly they're not going to give me their money, which means they do in some sense care about the truth. You can use examples like that that don't go to the particular pseudoscience or religious belief that they're talking about to show that they do care about the truth. And if they're still not necessarily convinced, you can try to show them why they should care about the truth by demonstrating the benefits of having an accurate model of reality, demonstrate the significance of being willing to say, I don't know, when you don't know, because that's the answer that allows you to go out and find an answer, pretending that the dangers of pretending that you do know something when you don't. But beliefs aren't necessarily about only intellectual understanding and comprehension. They are also about emotion, about community, about what the people around you believe, and this is where your individual investment and biases come into this. I was, once upon a time, while I was in the Navy, a full-on Rush Limbaugh ditto head. I have no idea when that changed. I'm now pretty much the exact opposite. I've kept the books, the two books that Rush wrote that I read. They're on my shelf, and I'm planning probably in the next 5 or 10 years to go back and read them so I can go, what the hell was wrong with me? Or to go, hey, wait a minute, maybe he has a point here. Maybe I went from one extreme to another and the truth is somewhere in the middle. That's not necessarily the case, by the way. It's entirely possible that he's completely wrong. One of the problems is that I had biases from my religious upbringing, and they were reinforced by the people who surrounded me and the culture that I was in, although being in the military definitely shredded some of my prejudices. Having to discharge, I was in during Don't Ask, Don't Tell, and having to discharge a really good sailor just because he happened to be gay, while the piece of crap who turned him in got to stick around. That was formative in changing my view on these issues. But not only were my views reinforced, but I didn't know squat about the issues. I pretty much still am perhaps a political idiot, a financial idiot. There are a whole bunch of categories where I know nothing or next to nothing. And so there's a bit of the Dunning-Kruger effect going on, and that is that you don't know how much there is to know, so you overestimate how much you actually do know about it. And what happens is, if I believe something, and I'm listening to this radio talk show host who clearly knows the subject better than I do, and his conclusions reinforce my own, that feels great. Look, I figured this stuff out and didn't have to spend years studying it. He knows so much more than I do, and that's good enough for me. Now I definitely don't need to go investigate anything because the people who know have just reaffirmed what I believe. So we're done then, right? I mean, that's all you really need. Hey, find somebody who knows more and is smarter, and if they agree with you and you're right, you can go on to the things that really matter, like, you know, catching Pokemon or going to a movie. I'm doing a debate here in Dallas in 2 weeks, August 6th, with Blake Junta on the resurrection. And I think my biggest regret is that it's happening the day after Suicide Squad comes out, so I don't think I'll get to see it on opening night. So what happens if that person who knows more about this than you still only knows 10 or 15% of what there is to know, or less? What if you are so uninformed about a subject that the person you think knows so much really doesn't know that much? And what if they are also injecting their biases and you don't have the training and skill to be able to identify fallacies in thinking? You're screwed. Now, somebody watching the video will point out that this is still potentially true, that even after changing my mind, maybe, I still don't know a fraction of a percent of what there is to know, and so somewhere out there is a God or something supernatural, or some of these pseudosciences are real, and I can't say that that's false. But the time to believe them is after they've actually been demonstrated, and so far I've seen no demonstration of that, and when that demonstration happens, I will change my mind. But we're suspicious of people who change their mind, especially in the realm of politics. In politics, you're a flip-flopper. You changed your mind, changed your position, you're a flip-flopper, you can't be trusted. And we start to wonder, why did they change their position? And there are a number of potential reasons. Perhaps corruption, perhaps careful consideration, perhaps compassion. Maybe there's some other reason. Did they just sell out to big government, big pharma, follow the money, whatever, you know, whoever's got the deepest pockets so they could get elected and they really don't care about anybody? The problem here is that, first of all, we seem to be assuming that changing your mind is a bad thing, or that changing your mind is especially suspicious. And perhaps it is, because we're pretty much creatures of habit. We don't really change our mind on big things that often. Doing the heavy lifting of thinking about morality and all these issues that religions provide supposedly easy answers to, that's a lot of work, and most people don't take an inventory of their lives and take stock of their beliefs and try to figure out if they're true. We just don't do it, so it's suspicious when somebody changes their mind. Now, I can't actually read minds, so I'd rather have the person who changed their mind tell me why they changed their mind and then evaluate that as best I can. I'm not a human lie detector. I've just got to go with the best information I have. Corruption is possible. Careful consideration is also possible. But so is compassion. How many people, how many politicians have we seen who were vehemently anti-gay, who flipped their position because their son or daughter came out of the closet? They didn't have to evaluate all kinds of data. All they had to do was care about the fact that, hey, I've been doing something which now is going to negatively impact somebody who I care about more than all the other people. One of the nice things would be if we could extend this caring to everybody, but I know that's impractical. I know that we are always going to have a sort of tunnel vision focus. Hopefully we can widen it a little bit. I care more about me than I do about my family, than I do about my community, than my city, state, country, planet, solar system. I don't care if 1 billion aliens died on some world yesterday. It just doesn't, even if somebody said, hey, 1 billion aliens died, I'd be like, okay. There's no investment in that. So increasing the investment in broader communities, which is something that's happening here, is something that I think is essential.